Kept you waiting, huh? Welcome back to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. We received a timely donation this month. It's Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. Considering the Phantom Pain just came out, I've got a good guess why Chip from Knoxville sent us this game. But let's check it out anyway.
This is one of the most famous series in all of gaming. It's part of the foundation of stealth games, and I'd argue that it's still the best at it. From Assassin's Creed to Batman Arkham Asylum... Wait, that's only from A to B... Oh, from Assassin's Creed to Watch_Dogs, Metal Gear is still the supreme stealth experience. In these games, the player is tasked with avoiding combat if at all possible. Don't get me wrong, Solid Snake can chew bubblegum and kick ass, but he's all out of bubblegum. Actually, the entire reason Metal Gear is a stealth game is quite humorous. Series creator Hideo Kojima initially set out to make a military-style action game. The problem? The MSX2 computer for which it was being made was unable to keep up with the enemies and bullets on screen. Rather than scrap the idea, Kojima instead decided to shift the focus away from direct combat while keeping the military setting, theme, and plot. And now you know the rest of the story. Please tell me you got that. Hideo Kojima originally planned to be a filmmaker. Frankly, you can tell, as he is credited in this game as the creator, director, producer, designer, and head writer. Don't worry, fanboys, that's not an attack. Frankly, if you couldn't tell by my shirt, I'm one too. Anyway, Kojima's pivot to gaming didn't mean he had to abandon his cinematic skills. Instead, he incorporated them into the games, and they're much better for it. As proof, these games are not only very story-driven, but cinematography and production values are considered at every turn during development. Camera angles are chosen deliberately. Lighting is incredibly specific. Music is there to set the mood of every scene. And most of all, the voice acting is some of the best in the industry. You'll likely recognize at least a few cast members in this game. Quentin Flynn has done many recognizable cartoons, both American and anime. Paul Eiding has credits from Transformers to Monsters University. Futurama and Family Guy fans will instantly catch Phil Lamar. Jennifer Hale is a Disney mainstay who has even reprised some of her roles in the Kingdom Hearts games. Cam Clark is a legend in voice acting, and I'm sure you're familiar with at least some of his work. Leonardo. And while he doesn't transcend quite as well as the others, David Hayter lent his voice to Solid Snake, and in so doing, created one of the greatest icons in all of gaming. It's a good thing so many talented voice actors were available to perform these roles, because there's a lot for them to say. The full script of this game is over 800 pages long. Few, if any, players will ever encounter the entire thing, though. Many of these lines are reserved for the various codec calls in the game. Think of your codec like a built-in cell phone that only you can hear. Its function ranges from tutorial to exposition, and it has a boatload of additional flavor to flesh out the world of the game. It's a true testament to both the writers and the actors that so many lines that will rarely even be heard are given such care. The thorough nature of this game is evident before you even start it, actually. There are literally hundreds of pages of text written as in-game documents for you to read before you even begin your mission. They're purely optional, but they're well written, feature familiar characters from other games, and help you to get caught up, on the outside chance this is your first rodeo with a Metal Gear.
The radar should be functioning now?
Remember your VR training sessions. The tool is exactly the same one. It maps the terrain as well as the position of enemy personnel. The bright dot in the middle is you, Raiden. The red dots are your enemies, and the blue cone shape represents their field of vision. Your radar isn't affected by the weather, but if you're discovered by an enemy, you won't be able to use it. It gets jammed easily, I'm afraid. It's all made from currently existing technology. You won't be able to use it in an area with strong harmonic resonance, so be careful. The Big Shell's layout map should now be available after touching the Start button.
How do I save the mission data?
I've set aside a proprietary frequency for saves, and an analyst to work on the data too.
Jack, is everything all right?
What are you doing here?
Jack, can you hear me?
Rose, you're not supposed to be involved.
It would be pretty easy to look at a game like this on only a superficial level and quickly dismiss it as a bro game. Bro games are those beloved by fart boys. I mean frat boys. Or do I? You know the types. Mostly those sports ball games with annual roster updates, and games where you look down gun sights the entire time. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for Madden and Halo, but they just don't have the depth or complexity as MGS. Ooh, I got an idea. Maybe somebody should combine those two types of games and make one where you run around a football field and try to score touchdowns while looking down the barrel of a gun. Maybe not. While we're on the subject of the shallow, let's talk about the graphics. This game came out about a year after the PS2 here in America. That's pretty early in the lifespan of one of the consoles with the greatest longevity. The PS2 received releases for 13 years. That's unheard of. Looking at the graphics of this game, they look great, period. They look amazing for a game from 2001. Characters are incredibly expressive, and the physics are pretty responsive. I'm also a sucker for lighting and particle effects, and this game pulls both off extremely well. On the sound front, we already covered the industry-leading voice acting, but what about the rest of the audio? Harry Gregson Williams composed many of the music tracks heard in the game. I'm torn. I don't know if I prefer his work on Metal Gear or Team America World Police. Tough call. Either way, he brings a truly epic sound with him to further enrich this adventure. Outside of cutscenes, music is minimal in this game and easily fades into the background. This is important and beneficial. You'll need all of your senses in order to get through this game, because your enemies will certainly be using theirs. If they see you, well, obviously they'll know that you're here, but in addition to sight, enemies will investigate strange sounds. You can use this to your benefit, but if you're not careful, you'll give yourself away. Touch is pretty evident, but less so is smell. Believe it or not, it's possible for you to pick up strange scents and for enemy soldiers to track you as a result. Of course, as you play the game, you'll become familiar with enemy intelligence and behavior, so you'll be able to exploit it easily. But it's still important to note that you have to do so, rather than just charge in guns a-blazing. Even more impressive is how responsive enemy behavior is when they interact with each other. Guards are supposed to check in every so often. If you kill a guy or knock him out, he will be unable to do so, and more baddies will come in to check on him. If an enemy notices you, he'll use his radio to call in for reinforcements. You can even shoot out his radio if you like. For that matter, depending on where you damage a guard will dictate much of his behavior. Shoot his legs, and he's much less mobile. Shoot his hands, and his accuracy will plummet. Shoot his head, and, well, he's worm food. What if you're using non-lethal rounds? If you're trying to tranquilize an enemy soldier, you want head and neck shots since they take effect immediately. The farther away you're hit, the longer it takes for the trank to work. You can hold up guards if you like as well. This is also the best way to gather dog tags. Dog tags are collectibles with a twofold purpose. They are your way to access some fun, unique equipment such as the infinite ammo bandana, but they're also a reminder of the humanity of your enemies. Every single enemy on every single difficulty has a unique name. This is an important element for you to consider when you defuse tense situations. Full disclosure, you can see I've been using some of the cheat items whenever you get enough dog tags, and frankly, as hard as it was to get every single dog tag on every single difficulty, I don't feel a bit bad about it. While Solid Snake is a badass, and I suppose so is Raiden to a lesser extent, the game emphasizes their human frailties. Human beings can only get shot so many times before dying. They're funny that way. Snake is no different. In fact, depending on the difficulty, he may not be any more durable than the random baddies in the game. This is on purpose to further accentuate that this is a stealth game. Fight if you have to, but avoid it when you can. This series is famous for gradual failure states. Getting spotted doesn't mean game over, unless you're a masochist playing on the European extreme difficulty. Instead, it means you must escape your enemies as quickly as possible. If that doesn't work, you can opt to fight them. Keep in mind, your resources are very limited, and depending on the outcome of the combat, you may have open wounds, and the trail of blood you leave behind now makes maintaining your secrecy all the more difficult. This actually brings me to one of my favorite aspects of the Metal Gear games. In far too many games, players must find the singular solution to each problem presented. Metal Gear generally defies this. If you want to get through a particular room, there are many, if not nearly infinite ways for you to do it. You could go with the kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out approach. You could knock out every guard and sneak by while they're unconscious. Perhaps you truly want to be a ghost. It's entirely possible to get by without directly interacting with sentries at all, so long as you're careful. One of my favorite methods is to kill or KO a guard, then drop his body directly in the path of another, and while the second checks on the first, kill, KO, or slip by him. The variety in how you can traverse the game is one of the reasons it has such impressive replay value. Think the game's too easy? Try beating it without killing anybody. Need more challenge? How about an unarmed run? With very few scripted exceptions, it can be done. One of my favorite, though admittedly controversial, aspects of the game is the fourth wall breaking. This is originally a movie term, referring to when a character talks directly to the audience. Normally, the camera itself is treated as an invisible fourth wall, the other three being the set behind and to the left and right of the cast. While gaming is not limited to the same three-dimensional real space, the term is stuck. Personally, I love it in both. When Mel Brooks reminds us, "It's good to be the king," I chuckle every time. Similarly, when characters tell me to press the action button to change floors, I see it as an extension of the movie joke. I know some people don't like it, but that's their problem. Actually, one of the best moments of the entire game is loaded to capacity with said fourth wall breaking. Near the end of the game, Raiden's codec goes haywire, and he starts receiving increasingly bizarre calls. Many of these are speaking directly to the player, and it becomes some of the most quotable lines in the game. For the record, I was a sophomore in college when this game came out. I knew if I brought my shiny new PS2 with me, I'd be too distracted to study, so I left it at home. This led to me binge playing whenever I was visiting my parents back at home. My first time through the game was a single marathon playthrough. I was exhausted from a long week at school and a reasonably long drive back home. I hadn't slept. I just had to keep playing. The morning sun was just starting to vanquish the horrible night when I got to this particular scene. When the game told me that I'd been playing too long and that I need to turn it off, I actually started to worry a bit that I might be going insane. I'm so grateful that I truly experienced this scene exactly as it was meant to be received my first time. Seriously, this part of the game is the stuff of legends.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
What's wrong with you?
Don't worry, it's a game. It's a game just like usual.
You'll ruin your eyes playing so close to the TV.
What are you talking about?
Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday when I was driving home. I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky to the east. It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly,
You make
there was
no
intense
sense.
light all around me. And when I came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me?
Huh?
Fine.
Forget it.
Even my patience has its limits. I just can't leave this thing up to you any longer. I'll do the fighting. You can just go home.
I know I haven't said much about the story, but that's because you really should experience it yourself. It covers a wide range of serious topics, including censorship a la 1984. It's the kind of game, and series, where you often wonder who the good guys and bad guys really are. Are you perhaps being manipulated into doing evil yourself? And thankfully, the series doesn't stray into lame moral ambiguity or anything like that. It continues to raise questions that are very adult in nature. The quality of the writing and the stellar performances of the acting propel the story into the stratosphere. Unfortunately, the story sword cuts both ways. For the most part, I like the story of this game, and I love the story for the series as a whole, but this game, strangely, manages to have an enormously impactful story, which is sadly somehow lazy at the same time. If you've played Metal Gear Solid, you'll see a lot of the same stuff here. It's not exactly deja vu, and they do use it to make a point, but at the same time, it comes across as a bit half-assed, and honestly, it is. The pacing of the story is also a bit of a problem. There's story throughout, but much of it happens near the very end of the game. This is fairly common in this series, and this game is far from the worst offender, but it's still an issue. Also, the story gets dreadfully convoluted. It raises many good points, but it also has some idiotic moments. They're mostly character interactions, but they will leave you questioning some characters' choices. This game has been significantly undermined by others in the series. When this was the current game, players had many different takes on the ending, with a lot of intelligent theories backed up with in-game evidence. One of my favorites was a theory that this game never even happened. Unfortunately, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots spelled out too many things, and the game actually managed to diminish my enjoyment of this one through some of its own strange story choices. Frankly, I hate the story of Metal Gear Solid 4, and while I enjoy the gameplay, I simply refuse to acknowledge its existence as canon. In my mind, the series ends with the questions raised at the end of this game. There's only one other possible negative I can see, and it's highly subjective. The play control can be a bit difficult. I don't really think it's a fault of the game though. You simply have so many options at your disposal for any given situation that it can require more dexterity than the normal game. Again, I don't have any problems with the control at all, but some players might. You will be using every single button on the PlayStation 2 controller, and often you'll be holding one or two of them while doing other actions at the same time.
Alright, let's be honest, this is an easy one. But, just for the sake of argument, is this game worth it? I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's a companion article for this video on theculturecache.com. Check it out. We've also got an Amazon ad running on there where this game was up for sale for 16 cents. Somebody got a steal because they bought the game through that ad, and let me repeat, they paid 16 cents. What game isn't worth 16 cents? Come on. The good news is this game was so mass-produced, the price probably isn't going to go up anytime soon. So you owe it to yourself to get this game in some form or fashion if you don't have it already. Thanks for watching.
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw Space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey Rock. I need scissors. 61.